Hey, what's happening? All it's Tone with Tone's Custom Flies. I got an opportunity recently to be running a whole bunch of custom brushes, so I figured I would make a little video on how I like to do some of my jazzed up custom brush work for situation-specific events. You know, the beauty of brush work is that anyone can do it, and it's ultimately going to be a matter of deciding what you want to achieve within the fly and customizing your brushwork to accommodate that. So overall, you're going to take your base of materials and understanding of fly building and achieve the types of lengths and profiles, color accents, and everything you want to customize with. That's the fun part of it. So just wanted to kind of showcase, you know, you don't have to rush through it. You can take your time. The build is what's going to determine, the build of your brush rather, is what's going to determine the efficacy of your fly profile overall. So that's what I like to spend a lot of my time on, as well as staying hydrated. So we're gonna get right into this here. This one is gonna be primarily for probably larger surf fishing, some topwater jack flies. So what I want to do is reinforce the strength of the materials with a heavier duty synthetic fish fiber material to start off with. It's still pretty flowy, it's got nice crinkle to it, like a very, very subtle bucktail. However, you've got the length, you've got the colors, and you've got the durability that it won't shred apart like other natural fibers. Another one that we're going to use in this is Icelandic sheep hair. You're going to get the length, the color, surprisingly the durability, but primarily the softness. It acts as a binder with other materials, so it really tends to hold shape when you're going to be forming and trimming after the fact. Very good flowy material. And color accents, we're going to go with some squimpish hair on this one. This I like to highlight in blue for your classic electric lettuce color blend in there. This is a smooth blend, it's naturally tapered, so you're going to be able to get a little bit more 3D profile accuracy to it with the build. These I'll probably, you know, let hang. It's going to depend on the material, but we'll figure, oops, cannot read that backwards, huh? So from the point of the wire, I'd like to have at least 5, probably 6 inches overhanging. Some of the lengths we're going to be pulling about 1 inch or 2 to stagger the body width, which is going to create the 3D profile on the side closest to you from on the wire. So first things first, I'm going to lay the base material down. This one, I'm going to be using the Icelandic sheep. Excuse me. Okay. So I'm going to pull a fairly sizable clump, knowing that I'm going to be able to spread it out. And this stuff has a lot of underfur. So knowing that you're going to lose, you know, your bottom 1 to 2 inches of this when you hang it on the brush anyway, I'll kind of take it a little bit above the fluff, find my scissors, my brush scissors, and I don't know, maybe 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch above the top of the fluff. Get however much you need in there, check that balance, and I'm probably going to have to put some wire down before I start building this thing. So hold that thought. See, now you get into why you don't do this on Saturday mornings, right? So I'm going to anchor to this post, all right? 5 wraps after a loop. Move this deck out of the way real quick. Swing this around my custom hook. So the inside of the bend, I just got it facing backwards and use that as an anchor point for the wire. My wax should be over here. But you know, depending on the materials, I tend to do it almost all the time now, is waxing up the line there. Certain materials it definitely holds better. The Icelandic sheep is going to hold that in place a lot tighter, and keeps your synthetics from slipping. So now that I've got that waxed up, I'm going to go back to step 2 after skipping step 1. Make sure that I've got a little bit of an overhang behind the brush. It's probably about 1.5 inches of deck behind the behind the first wire that's going to be there. So take this material again, Icelandic sheep. And this one's going to be pretty thick in the base, again, knowing that you're going to lose about the bottom ½ inch, 3/4 inch of fluff on the side closest to you on that table. So I'll let it hang down about 1.5 to 2 inches. So I've got the length and the density of material on the longer fibers. You're going to see it looks like it's sticking up a lot. There's a lot of material in there, but reality, when you you're just compensating for the amount of material you're going to lose off the back end there. And that's fine, you know, perfectly natural. So I got about 40% of this brush left to build. I'll pull another chunk out here. Again, come across about 1/2, 3/4 inch above the bottom there. Try and keep these fibers out nice and straight, and then spread to achieve density. And try and keep them untangled in the prelim stages, and you're gonna see why that'll help you in the long run, especially with the Icelandic sheep. If it's not managed properly, you know, it can become a whole mess. So I have phases in which I like to rotate that I'll explain as I do them, where your first light pick out is going to be to eliminate the underfur fibers and to keep this material primarily untangled from everything else. Once you get to a certain point of tanglement, or entanglement, I guess you would call it, it becomes significantly more difficult to pick out. So you're going to get those weird spots of inconsistent densities and weird wraps, and yeah. So then we're going to go in with our synthetic material, this brute fish fiber, and I'm just going to kind of take it smaller sections. Smaller for what it is, less than half, probably, what is this, 10-inch sections. So you figure I'm going to lay it, you know, 6 inches on one side, 4 inches hanging over the other. And this doesn't need to be too dense, so, you know, spread that out in your fingers, give yourself your length there, give yourself a little density check. Continue with the next block here. I'm just trying to hold it up. I almost cut myself in the dang nose, man. Boy, it was so... Here, I like to stagger these. If you have to make a cut, you know, don't make it a clean line. Usually that'll show through in a not so desirable way. That's when you have to do a little bit of trimming in post, but... All right, look at that, beautiful. One more little clump for this. And then we'll be golden to go into our next one. What was I talking about earlier? Oh yeah, nice and cold today. Jeez. Had to put shoes on, it was out of control. All right, so now we've got all our white laid down. This is going to be a fun blend right here. And again, that white is to this material, that fish fiber. Like I said, it's kind of thin, so it's got a good amount of flow to it. It's not too stiff as a synthetic, but it's going to be a lot more durable than a lot of natural materials that you would use. Next one is going to be our squimpish hair. I'm going with the blue highlights in this, so it's going to be really thin, just laid in and sprinkled, because I want that blue to show. If you put too much within the density of the total brush material, it will actually blend well enough that it'll just change the color, and it wouldn't be, you know, fibrous accents like I'm going for with this. So significantly thinner than you think you would go. I'll still pull, you know, a pencil-sized clump at a time. And I'm just going to start from the longest fibers out and just grazing them across here. And you want to make sure you don't leave them in too dense of clumps, but you know, if you're going to be doing some dense clumps, kind of spread them out, see what you can get with that. So just nice and sparse distribution through it if you can. Even these short guys, you know, it'll add a little bit of color on the inside, kind of like how you would do a hot core style brush, you know, with a shorter material on the inside that's going to be a contrast in color. So when you build it out, it looks like that color's flaring from the inside. All right. Now that looks good. Length, width, color, position, density. All right. I'm going to come back over and maintain pressure on my hook, take an eyeball over this, press down, lock around, and wrap about 4 or 5 times over this. So, and then what I like to do, just as a practice of good measure, is going to pull my material back a hair, come through with my forefinger and thumb, give it a few quick spins just till I can create enough tension and a stopping point in the wire. So here's where my material is going to start becoming a brush. And then I'll use that to pick up the tension and keep the position with my thumb and forefinger on the back end of it so the material doesn't slip once the tension starts rolling. So I'm just going to lift this gently with my thumb, create enough tension that this holds, move this guy out of the way, just holding that in place. You see, it doesn't look too fancy, but the blend of materials is what's going to do this whole thing justice. Start spinning her up. Keep a little bit of tension just to make sure the back end starts all right, and then I'll just release tension here. Now you'll see one of the most frustrating parts for people is getting into this and organizing the fibers, brushing everything out and keeping everything clean. It's time consuming, but the reality is for the effect that you can create with making these things, it is completely worth it. I can sit here and pick out brushes for way longer than one thinks you should have to. But, you know, at least for me, and the material selection and the style that you're going for, that's what it's going to take to achieve that effect. So right now, like I said, we're taking out all that underfluff, all of that orange or chartreuse Icelandic sheep under fur is what's coming out first. Now this is with the lightest tension. I'm basically just making sure that the fibers are going to be free so that I can continue to create tension to really bring it all together. And this point is super critical. I really want to sit and make sure that nothing is too bound up, because at this point, the more you free, the more tension you will be able to purchase when you're driving and spinning this brush up. So really, it's loosening the tension of all the stuff that's trapped in there as far as the fibers at this point and further down the road when you do this. So you're going to be able to get a more accurate tension evenly across the wire. So trust me, if you can afford to spend a little extra time in these spots, it is entirely worth it to me. So I don't really want to go too much on this because it's still early in the game, but creating enough tension with it and doing a diagonal pull across the wire is always the most helpful way to loosen those without pulling too much straight tension. So now it looks like everything's pretty well bound in there already. However, I know I do want to cinch down the tension on this. So now you see all the fibers are starting to blend up. Everything's looking a little bit more even. You get all that underfur fluff that just falls out to the bottom right there. And now I will keep these away from the ends because I got some good length on them before I start spinning it up again. Get these little scraps out of there. All right, looks pretty good. And you can tell, I don't know if you'll be able to tell on this video, however, well, we'll go through it afterwards. Once you see the consistency of the spacing between the spirals, so all of these concentric spirals, you want to make sure that you have an even distribution or an even consistency so that you know where the tension needs to be adjusted. You can either hold your finger in a position, increase, decrease tension, whichever way you want to go with it. But again, it's these little things, you know, the more time and effort you put into practicing these things, you'll understand how important they are and how easy it is once you know what you want to achieve how to create those effects within something that you're going to build later. So I just like to go stockpile brushes from time to time, knowing that, you know, I'm going to run a few of the same way, and I'll go through. I have some that I had run yesterday for some special little projects, but you know, you develop a formula for these very easily. You know what you're trying to achieve, so you're trying to just replicate the consistency that you're seeing every time. You know, you recognize the density, you recognize the length, you recognize the positioning, you recognize the type of materials, and that's going to be the biggest factor. You know, a lot of people wouldn't, you know, consider blending some of the materials that you could blend, and they all have their functions. So like I was saying, you know, I have some for durability, some for flow and trimming, and some for overall effect, color, flare, length, you know, whatever reason you need those things. So when you're when you are finalizing your brush, I realize that I've got enough even tension all the way throughout, start to finish, your brush size here. The horizontal brushing is what's going to be putting the most pressure on anything that's still trapped, as far as these fibers that are wrapped around and bound within your wire. So I'm pretty free of all of that at this point. I am not losing any fibers except for fluff that had just come out. So no long fibers, there's enough tension to hold everything together. I'm ready to snip this thing. Take this off of my hook. And again, you can see, I've done a few of these recently. This hook is wire ends all the way up to the bend almost here. And just take this off the post of the vise. And then just for cleanliness and storage, I will just comb these out in one direction so I can bag them up for later, stack them, stash them, however you need to deal with them. But this is what you're looking at here. So a nice smooth blend, almost with a hot core section, but a little bit longer. A little bit of blue flare inside there. Just tie that on the back of a hook. Good to go, right? But that's the way I like to do them. I've been messing around with some other colors and some different material blends for different densities and flow. So you can use those as, you know, full body brushes, brushes to use for caps and heads on different types of hybrid body materials, doing bucktail work. You can use it on top of it, using the bucktail as a prop material. I mean, your possibilities are endless with this stuff. You just kind of play around with it, figure out what you want to do, replicate the process, and make it work for you. So that's it. This brush actually came out pretty cool. I can't wait to use that because, yeah, it's gonna be nice. Big old jack flies. So again, hope some of this was at least interesting, informative, helpful to any of you. Let me know if there's anything that you want to see or hear about. Yeah, I don't know what else to do. Jeez, this is just what I do. Yeah, feel free to hit me up. That's Tone with 3 underscores on Instagram, tonescustomflies.com, Tones Custom Flies on YouTube. Check it out. Every once in a while I'll put up something fun, but let me know what you want to see. Let's coordinate, let's collab, let's do some stuff, let's keep tying, and hope you're gonna have a good one. Peace.